Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. We're going to start this thing off. I have a lot of stuff. We're going to start this off by, I want to show you this article. Private equity, the way everything's been going down here recently, and if we're potentially entering a recession, this is good information to have. Private equity will still outperform public markets in the next recession. I wanted to bring your attention to this down here. It says, but historically, it's times like these that private equity outperforms public markets the most. Data from these people basically says that that's the case. And this is an interesting part. Funds can invest in companies at lower valuations, leaving more room to expand multiples after recovery and generating more opportunities. Apart from room for multiple expansion, lower multiples allow funds and their portfolio companies to acquire smaller competitors that complement existing platform investments at lower, sometimes distressed valuations. So this is a perfect lead into one of my sponsors, I'll put a link to this at the very top of the description. These guys, and remember, there's only one company and one digital asset who have an SEC lawsuit hanging over their heads, which, when removed, clears a lot of skies. And so they've had Ripple on there. I'm pretty sure they have it on the platform right now. I haven't looked today, but you want to go check that out. It's for accredited investors, by the way. Jim Cramer, yesterday he was talking about how there's just no real value in cryptocurrencies. So just thought it'd be interesting to show you a few things he said in the past. There are fortunes made in crypto. Why Jim Cramer recommends buying Bitcoin and Ethereum with one caveat. Why Bitcoin and Ethereum are the right bets according to Jim Cramer. CNBC's Jim Cramer says he's a believer in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Pay me in Bitcoin. So this guy's full of crap is the moral of the story. All right, moving along. Former Microsoft economist joins DOJ antitrust team as tech probes surge. This is Susan Athey. If you remember, she's the same. She was a Stanford professor, and she was the same woman who did the XRP valuation model with Robbie Mitchnick, and he's the guy that worked at Ripple and then left and went to BlackRock, and now she's helping with. And she's on the DOJ antitrust team. Well, if she's on the antitrust team, then she ought to be talking to the SEC about Ethereum, is what I think. Okay, now there's this. This is Mary C. Hall, who is with Ripple, and she's pointing to this video from Joe Villano. He's one of the CBDC executives. Listen to this.
We've been working with governments and financial institutions for about a decade implementing blockchain solutions globally. Why is blockchain important for government in particular? I think there's an enormous opportunity right now for government to foster a culture of innovation and unlock enormous activity within their own private sector that will create add value to the economy, add intellectual property into the country. And blockchain is an enormously democratizing vehicle that can be used to do that. So when we go into countries, we always look to engage with the local population and build partnerships that will help the country achieve their specific goals. I think it's enormously impressive, and it's heartening to see a government and an economy embrace blockchain technology. I think the promise of blockchain is enormous, and the countries now that are starting to explore how to utilize it will gain enormous rewards because of it. So I acknowledge Colombia's interest in this topic, and I think their progressive agenda is very healthy.
Okay. Now, just in Central African Republic, which adopted Bitcoin as legal tender in April, is poised to ditch Bitcoin after lack of demand and plans to release their own CBDC. Proof of work doesn't work, folks. I think this is from Jeremy Hogan, I think Judge Netburn will rule on the Hinman emails this week, mainly because motions to strike expert witness are due next week, Tuesday. Speaking of which, looking forward to Ripple's motion to strike the expert report of Mr. Duty. It should be a doozy. Now, what's interesting here, if you think about this, folks, remember, if the judge comes out and says, you got to show us those Hinman emails, remember, you're never going to see those emails, which only means one thing, which takes us back to Link2 and Ripple private equity. If that judge comes out and says, you're showing the Hinman emails, is that not game over, folks? That's a thumbnail. Game freaking over. It is game over if that happens, folks. And then it just comes down to, okay, Gary just lost all of his bargaining position right there if that happens. Statement, CFTC regarding enforcement action against JP Morgan Chase. We know that the SEC and Gary Gensler are not going to go after JP Morgan because that's Gary's boys, right, on Wall Street. But the CFTC apparently seems willing to do so. They're doing an enforcement action against JP Morgan, or remember, because the SEC and the CFTC have been working together even during the Ethereum free pass. This right here, for all we know, is just to provide cover for the whole Ethereum free pass saga. I don't trust any of these people, folks. And I found this last night. You might remember, of course you remember, this is Joseph Lubin telling you about how JP Morgan was involved in Ethereum even before the public mainnet launch.
Our company consensus has been...
And this is Christine Moy, who ran JP Morgan's blockchain. She left recently.
Very prominent since the start of the Ethereum ecosystem. I can attest that JP Morgan was there right from the start before public mainnet was even launched.
I'm not going to go into all of that, but the point is that they were there from the beginning. Well, you want to know where else they were? Do you remember Mt. Gox? Mt. Gox, remember, big hack, everything falls apart. Remember Jamie Dimon, Bitcoin's a fraud, Bitcoin's a fraud. Well, apparently he didn't think it was a big enough fraud to not bank Mt. Gox. With over 1,500, this is from the Mt. Gox website, going to the Wayback Machine on November 26, 2011. With over 15 branches, Chase is an ideal partner for Mt. Gox in the USA, providing anyone interested in purchasing Bitcoins a quick, simple, and safe way of doing so. My question is, if Mt. Gox was their bank, does that mean Jed McCaleb was meeting with JP Morgan? Because there had to be a ton of money flowing through that bank account, folks. A ton of money. Why was JP Morgan involved in this? Why they're at the beginning of Ethereum? This is pretty much the beginning of Bitcoin. Why is JP Morgan everywhere you look? Why are they here? This is from CoinDesk, May 12th of 2020. JP Morgan Bank takes on Coinbase Gemini as its first crypto exchange customers. The U.S. banking giant is providing deposit and withdrawal transactions for exchanges. And remember, Gemini would never would list XRP. I even told them publicly on Twitter that I would fly to New York at my cost and promote their addition of XRP to their exchange. They never even responded to customers. We showed them all the thousands of customers they would get, and they still didn't respond. That's not how a business conducts itself unless it has an alternate agenda. But JP Morgan was banking Coinbase and Gemini, and we know how this story went down. They delisted XRP on Coinbase, and you had to kick and scream and beg and get them to add it in the first place. Breaking, crypto lender Voyager has filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Folks, things are interesting today. Look at this one. RippleX, our team conducted rigorous performance testing, and we're confident in the XRP ledger's ability to support XLS 20. Right as everything's falling apart and Ethereum can't seem to get their act together, Ripple rising, folks. Ripple, that's a thumbnail. Ripple rising. You can see it, folks. You can see it. Exciting times. Now, Digital Perspectives put this video up, and it's important that you understand this because a lot of people, they keep hearing CBDC, 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 but they don't understand how does that involve the XRP ledger. Where would XRP come in? Well, in my opinion, what it really means, all these CBDCs are going to be built on the XRP ledger, but they're going to be private ledgers. But David Schwartz one time described it, and he described it as, okay, imagine that these, okay, each one has, let's say Russia, I'm not saying they're working with Russia, but let's use a better example, Brazil. Brazil creates their own CBDC, private ledger, it's their own coin on the XRP ledger. It's a walled garden. Business is done within Brazil. Wall comes down because they would like to send money to the next country. Let's say Sweden. The wall comes down. The private garden wall comes down. And then Brazil and Sweden would want to hold XRP and make markets in XRP because when that wall comes down, you need a neutral bridge and it goes through XRP. And all these countries would have incentives to hold and make markets in XRP. That is the fact, Jack, and that's the way it's been described, but it's also described here.
Right, we're using the same technology.
This is James Wallace of Ripple.
That it's with the XRP ledger. The token would be the CBDC, right? So the central bank would actually create their own token, a digital euro, digital dollar, whatever the market is, and that becomes the digital asset.
So that becomes the digital asset. Keep listening.
The native coin.
The native coin, yeah. Now, where XRP could come into play potentially is when you're looking at cross-border CBDCs. So when you have a digital dollar and you have a digital, real, or digital pound, you obviously need to have some way to interact cross-border. Yeah. So I think the BIS call this a multi-CBDC model. One of the ideas is you use a sort of a neutral bridge currency to go from one to the other, similar to the model I explained earlier, with our on-demand liquidity. But the core offering really is not XRP. There's no XRP involved. It's the native token is the CBDC.
All right. He referenced the BIS. This is from the BIS today. There are now 4 live CBDCs in the world and pilots in 29 jurisdictions. 72 central banks have communicated publicly their CBDC work, and the tone of speech is more positive than they've got a whole bunch of information on that. Real XRP Boy says it's too late, haters. Ripple expects that escrow will increasingly be used for higher value on-ledger and cross-ledger atomic payments using the interledger protocol. This reminds me of what Bob Way said. Bob Way, remember, was one of the first 10 employees at Ripple. Anders L. had put this out. Once you have atomic settlement via 2 central banks, the game is over. Every other central bank will follow. There it is again, game over. And they've got graphics down here of this. So look at this. Finally, I want to finish with this. Jed McCaleb, remember, he's the guy that's been selling. Nobody knows who he's been selling to, but his wallet, which is called Taco Stand, is about to be empty. They say it's 9 or 10 days left, and the Jed McCaleb wallet will be empty. And here's the actual wallet itself. It shows 40.581 million XRP in it. And supposedly this is Jed selling XRP consistently. I've always asked the question, who's he selling it to? I don't think it's going to people. I think it's going to some government or governments. That's what I've always believed. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that Taco Stand is on those